PickFu is a self-service consumer research platform that anyone can use to get fast, reliable feedback from real people. You don't need to be a market research expert or hire one to use PickFu. All you need to do is create a poll, choose your target audience, and in minutes, you're going to start getting results. Real written responses from your target audience. You can ask for feedback on just about anything related to your business, marketing material, product designs, product packaging, almost anything. The respondents submit written comments with every PickFu poll. And now you can use the coupon code NOT101, that's NOT101, for a free 15-person poll at pickfu.com, pickfu.com.
Welcome to Business Law 101, a podcast that explores the uncommon side of business, goes beyond the conventional teachings, delves into the practical, real-world strategies and insights from successful founders, entrepreneurs, industry experts that understand what drives growth and how to achieve success in an ever-changing business landscape. So join us, and let's go beyond the basics. Hi, Arda. Thanks for joining us again on Business Law 101. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for inviting me again. Pleasure to be here with you again.
Well, thank you for accepting. It's been great to have you on here again. We originally had you on season 2, episode 14. So this is round 2 with a new project. So please introduce yourself to the listeners who don't know you and give us your business pitch.
Yeah, my name is Arda. I'm the founder and the CEO of DAO Hub. Web3 organizations use a lot of different tools. Discord for communications, Telegram, Notion, Discourse, and the list goes on. And information is scattered across all these different platforms, and it makes it difficult for employees and also the members of the communities to get information, to get access to information when they need it. So we aggregate all these different tools and platforms in one central knowledge base where you can ask questions like, summarize the meeting notes from last week, summarize the recent governance proposal and the discussions, and members would be able to get answers directly with one search. And right now we're working with some companies like Gitcoin, Krause House, and some other prominent names in the space. And yeah.
That's really interesting. So what was the aha light bulb moment behind this project that just sort of said, oh, this is something that's unique and something that's missing in the market and I can do?
Yeah, great question. So initially we started as a DAO marketplace where you can find new DAOs, explore them, and invest in them in one central platform. And this was when I came last time, we were talking about that marketplace. And we realized that monetizing consumer-facing products in Web3 is not that easy. We talked to a bunch of competitors, tried to find a good monetization strategy, but couldn't really find anything. The only way that we were thinking of maybe like monetizing through transactions, but it's not a good business model. There's already companies like Coinbase, Binance, like you wouldn't want to compete with them. So we talked to a lot of different organizations, a lot of investors, and I'm actually running a decentralized community myself. We start as a social DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, and now we are transitioning into an investment DAO, and we will support some Web3 companies in local Canadian Web3 companies soon. And I had this kind of first-hand knowledge experiencing and managing a Web3 organization, a community, and this was kind of my aha moments. I was like, we have all these different information. We need to know who does what in the community, who is an expert in NFTs in our community. And we didn't know, going through Discord messages and like different platforms, it wasn't that easy. So that's why we wanted to centralize all these knowledge in one platform. And so far, when we pitch this to other organizations, they're like, finally, there's a solution for this. So, they are praising the product. And yeah, that was kind of the aha moment for us.
That's super interesting. And I love Discord is a great place to gain knowledge and really be able to amplify your question to a bigger group, a bigger audience than you would just asking on Twitter or on most other social media. So that's really interesting. What do you feel that your business has as a secret sauce that differentiates it from other existing platforms and other businesses like yours?
Yeah, really good question. I think the main key is the value proposition, like the value that you're providing for the organizations that you're working with. Right now, we build all of our solutions, all the products based on the feedback that we're getting. We don't use any assumptions. This was a mistake that I made at my previous company, honestly. we had some assumptions. We wanted to test it out, but we can just talk to those customers directly and get their feedback and build products on top of that. Every week we're getting new requests now, and we know that most of those issues are actually common. When I talk to another organization, they have the same issues and they praise. So I found this really, really valuable to talk and get customer feedback directly. So far this has been the secret sauce. I wouldn't call it a secret sauce, but so far this has been a really good strategy for us.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, and I know what you mean. It's not exactly a secret, but it's something that a lot of organizations and a lot of companies sometimes overlook. So it's kind of like it's a good sauce, but maybe not a secret sauce.
Right.
What were some of the initial roadblocks when you started this project that you did not assume you're going to hit, having experience in the startup world for several other projects?
Yeah, so we are in the Web3 industry. It's not a mature industry compared to some other industries in Web2, and it's still at an early stage. There's a lot of different verticals, a lot of different concepts that you need to learn. So, it was difficult like initially. And then I personally explored some decentralized autonomous organizations, and I really liked that vertical, and that's how I wanted to go. But the problem is that space is not that big. And when I talk to investors, they always have this concern. So now we're kind of exploring some other use cases within other verticals in Web3. And I think this is one of the one of the roadblocks. We know the potential. We know that there's going to be a big growth in the next few years, but right now it's still not that mature. Especially in the bear market, a lot of investors have concerns. So yeah, I would say the biggest kind of concern about the industry is the fact that we're in a bear market. People are not really investing like 2 years ago. People were raising millions of dollars at 80 million, $90 million valuation. Right now, it's that whole ecosystem, that whole landscape is different. So yeah, but personally, I think that's a good time to build. If you can survive this bear market, you would do everything, during the bull market. So yeah.
Yeah, that's 100% true. We're seeing the shift in the investment sort of landscape, but we're seeing it from multiple different aspects, not just Web 3.3, I guess. We're seeing it as well in the startup world. We're seeing it in the mature business world as well. I think this, when I think about this, I think that investment, certainly for startups and any sort of business, is something that even in Canada, it's really difficult to do to begin with. So not only surviving a bear market, but a bear market in Canada and for investors and businesses, that says something a lot about your business if it can survive that. Now, it's sort of this leans into my next question, which is a little bit different for you guys. Now, you're not a huge team. I don't remember how many people you are in your team currently.
We're 4 people now.
Perfect. And so a lot of startups have to wear multiple hats. How do you guys sort of manage your current infrastructure? Because your organization is 4 people running multiple different parts of this business. Certainly there's a lot of communication, but there's also a lot of back end. So what hats are you guys wearing right now? What are you guys sort of offloading if you can, and what are you doing?
We wear all the hats that you can think of from, fundraising, business development, sales, coding. I personally wear like all these different hats, and it's also really good to have like technical background from university. So I always, like really appreciate my decisions back then. So yeah, sometimes, it's coding. Sometimes it's sales and business development. For example, like recently we have been getting interest through our website, our submission through website, and I had to prioritize some of the clients. I'm not really reaching out to like all the people who are expressing their interests because I personally don't have time to go over them. That's why we just hired a new salesperson, and hopefully we will be able to provide like more kind of customer support for those people. And we're also in a beta period. It's just based on kind of like the reason why we're running the beta is getting feedback and understanding all the needs that they have, and understanding our capabilities, building new products for the full release. And yeah, like during this beta, I'm wearing bunch of different hats, like for even legal as well, doing a lot of research, a lot of prompt engineering on ChatGPT to get the legal answers that we need. And that's a really kind of crucial aspect of being in a startup world, right? You have to be agile, you have to be flexible in terms of what you're doing. And personally, I really like this aspect because you learn different stuff. Not necessarily what you are working on, but you actually learn about different aspects like marketing, like fundraising, like business development. So this is one of the biggest aspects that I like about being in a startup world.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I know that so well, that experience, and I honestly believe it's one of the hardest things of a startup is knowing when to outsource certain parts of your business and what to keep, that you can manage yourself, because it becomes overwhelming. And as you grow, that speed in which the growth happens is not always easy to bring somebody in and to train them and to bring them up to speed to be able to replace you in certain parts. So, you know, this is the hardest part of any startup, I think. And this sort of leads to my next question, which is about sales, because one of the things I find hardest is the sales aspects for startups and small teams is how do they deal with their sales? So in your typical customer acquisition, even though it's in the early phase, how does it look like and how do you guys manage that?
Yeah. So this is actually my first experience in tech sales, but you actually get exposed to the concept of sales and a lot of different things, right? Like even I think fundraising is a sales process too. So in terms of that, I think I had some kind of foundation, but I still had to learn a lot of things. Right now, like we tried a lot of different ways to, generate those leads, and especially in Web3, the techniques and all the strategies are actually really different than what we have seen in Web2. So, attending to Web3 parties, conferences. I was at Consensus last week. I met a bunch of people and, some prospective clients as well. That's the way to go for in Web3, reaching out to people directly on DMs. This has been the best strategy that I've been using. So kind of, different than Web 2, but you learn, down the road, trying different techniques, different assumptions, and seeing which one works. So that's what I've been doing so far.
That's a great point. And it's something we don't talk a lot about in the show because there's two types of businesses. There's direct businesses. And we're not just talking B2B or B2C, but we're talking about the way the sales cycle is, which is directly to the customers. And you've touched on this. In Web 2, I 100% agree. It was a mass following. It was just, target as many people as you can and reel in the ones you can catch in your net. Today, it's changed a lot. People want much more of a direct communication. And this sort of leads to my next question, which was, are you guys aiming for building a massive community around your business and hoping that you get to trickle down into your customers? Or are you going to go the opposite direction, which is fine tuning exactly the type of person you want to target and communicate with them and get those people to follow, sort of amplifying those people to be able to become customers and influencers to help find you other customers?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We are a B2B business as well. So for me, it's quality over quantity. So far, we have been trying some different strategies, reaching out to like potential clients. At least for the early stages, our goal is to find our core company, the core clients that we can work with. But our ultimate goal is to replicate that model, kind of translating those use cases into other verticals as well. But personally, I respect quality over quantity. So, we're not trying to do like mass kind of, outreach. We try to find those key people. Like, if, for example, on Twitter, Web3 people really active, they talk about different things, they share their ideas. So I go them, follow them, comment, and then I send them a quick message. Oh, like, we have this product. Even though if you're not interested, if it's not a good fit, I would love to hear your feedback. And they're really friendly people mostly, they just schedule a call, you talk to them. Even though they're not interested, they're providing their feedback. So yeah, we're trying to do more like targeted, like reaching out to key people, getting some feedback. And, it also opens other doors. They make intros to other companies who might actually use this tool. So yeah, that's kind of our approach so far.
Yeah. So a targeted, fine tune, your customer, you're building up your avatar, your customer, and you're reaching out to that person to either become a customer or a customer influencer or an influencer and a referral contact.
Right.
That's brilliant. And I honestly believe we're going to see a shift in marketing towards that a lot more as this mass media marketing is being drowned out. Certainly with AI,
Mm-hmm.
working a lot with AI, it's hard to see that people can find what they're looking for a lot faster than having to do a search and then go through a lot of potential or possibilities that they actually can fine tune it a lot faster. So this is really interesting. And then the next question I was going to ask you, you kind of answered it, but I think we can clarify it. What platforms have you had the most success in being able to create that direct connection, that be able to DM? I know there's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, but which ones have been the most successful for you guys in your Web3 project?
Yeah. So again, things are a little different in Web3. So we didn't really use like traditional methods like LinkedIn because I kind of knew that it wasn't going to work. So I started with Discord. I got into all these, channel servers for the clients, prospective clients that we want to work with. And I reached out to people, key people, admins, community managers, and I didn't receive anything. I didn't hear back from them. One key reason might be because when you send a message, it goes to their, not to the direct inbox. So you have to like accept the request. And personally, I receive a lot of spam messages on Discord. There's this airdrop, like you want to get in and stuff. So I don't really use it personally. So I understand it didn't work. And then I tried reaching out to people on our company Twitter because again, Web3 people are really highly active on Twitter. So we tried company Twitter. It didn't really work. Some of them got back to us, but the conversion rate was really low. And then I tried using my personal Twitter account. I followed a bunch of people, and then some of them followed me back. And it's much easier when you follow each other because when you send a message, it goes directly, it sends a notification and it gets to the inbox directly. And I reached out to people, some decentralized autonomous community managers, some founders, and I heard them back. Like I would say every 5 people that I reached out to, at least 2, 3 of them got back to me with sometimes they say no, we're not interested, we need to do more research. Sometimes they're just interested in providing feedback. Sometimes we were able to work with them. So yeah, Twitter has been the most successful one so far. And oh yeah, and the other ones are, sorry, conferences. I was at Consensus last week in Austin. It was amazing. You connect to a lot of different people, and it's much easier when you're in that one-on-one kind of one-on-one setting, and you tell them, you show the demo directly. And yeah, and sometimes there's alcohol involved, so it's much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I cannot emphasize how much when a startup gets in front of people at conferences, finding the right conference or event, that translates so much better than trying to reach out on LinkedIn. Cold calling is just horrendous. And you brought up a great point that I really liked, which was using a personal account. I've noticed it over the years that the company accounts will get a lot of followers, but I would say about 90% of the followers of company accounts are spam accounts. They're looking to sell back to the company. And whereas your personal accounts, when it's done properly, and it really turns out to have a much deeper connection. And you're right, it's not always 100% customers, but you're going to get influencers, people that listen and talk and want to be part of the project, not directly, but indirectly, and that will help and support and bring the right person to the table. Whereas, yeah, company accounts are really just, I think they're customer facing just to be there, to be present, but they're not useful. I get so many, just my podcast gets tons of spam from people selling services all day long. So I can only imagine companies. So I think that's brilliant. I love that. Another great thing is finding the right people to communicate. I think that's something that I also struggle with, finding the time to communicate to people, to answer all the questions, because it's really about that. So now looking a little bit further into the future, because you guys this is you're starting, what's going to be your action plan? Because at one point you won't be able to spend all this time doing direct communication. You won't be able to be the person who sits all day long texting and DMing people. So what's one of the aspects you guys are looking at today to start pushing to grow your community in tomorrow?
Yeah, so this is definitely not sustainable for any of us. We need to expand the team to make sure that we have enough resources to support all the existing companies we have. Also, like other aspects like fundraising, partnerships, and all the other like coding, technology, all of them are in place properly. So Yeah, in terms of our roadmap, our main goal is to launch our full version hopefully in May or end of May. And we will have a more kind of streamlined onboarding process where people can just sign up rather than going through these customer discovery calls to, like set up the platform. They will be just able to, enter the information on our website, and they will be able to onboard quickly and, more simple, streamlined path kind of an approach. So right now it's a little bit tricky with the customer discovery call, and like it takes time, but it's more valuable for us because we want to hear them first. And then after that, we also want to explore some other aspects, other use cases that we can integrate AI like into the Web3 space. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of different use cases, especially in the governance space within Web3. So we want to use AI, find new use cases with AI in Web3. Yeah, so those are kind of the key concepts that we're going to be focusing on in the next few months.
That's brilliant. One question I love asking everybody is, if you can leave yourself a 30 or 60-second voicemail to your past self, going back and saying, hey, don't do this or do this, what would it be and why?
That's a really good question. It would be probably much more than 30 seconds, but some of the key things: follow your gut, believe in yourself. Don't be don't be too optimistic, stay realistic, and sometimes even stay pessimistic, and believe in yourself. Like those would be kind of the key pieces. Personally, I got involved with the entrepreneurship ecosystem at an early age. Like I was 19 when I co-founded my first company, so I was really like fortunate enough to see, like at an early stage. So before that, like you get upset to like small things, maybe like academic things, maybe some other, small things. Now that I'm thinking about all those stuff, it wasn't worth it, like creating that mental stress for yourself. It's not worth it. Oh, and then, okay, I found the number one thing that I would tell myself: your health is the most important thing in your life. It's more important than your work, your education. So take care of your health. That would be number one.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's so true when I talk to seasoned entrepreneurs and business owners. What they say is, be realistic, be grounded. And I love that.
Yeah.
There's too many times where we first time entrepreneurs and startups, they get into this whole like go big, scale up, this whole hyperscale business. And you have to tell them like, no, you need to be grounded. As a mentor, I tell people always ground yourself. And you're right. Like sometimes be a bit pessimistic. If it turns out to be good, it's good. But otherwise be prepared for the worst. And it's hard to explain that to people who don't experience a few businesses, because I've had my shares of catastrophes and some successes. But you need to get that out of your system to understand that you're right. It's super important to think of your health, think your mental health, your well-being, decompress, walk away from it, learn to kill an idea. So I love that answer.
Absolutely. Failing is just a part of it. If you're not failing, you're not going to be able to learn. Like that's the best learning opportunity for me. And that would be another kind of advice. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. The most important thing is not to repeat those same mistakes. So yeah, I just see failure as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So one of my next question is what is one trait you think an entrepreneur should have? Something that if you don't have this, you're going to struggle as an entrepreneur, or maybe look at having a 9 to 5.
That's a tough question. It's not easy to be a founder. It's a lot of mental stress. Sometimes, you hear no's from a lot of different people, like investors, your potential clients. So you need to stay emotionally okay, right? Like it's not easy to hear no's. And sometimes, there are people who are not necessarily nice. They might give you some rude comments and like not critical feedback. Like sometimes, people are rude. So, you need to be mentally okay, like after hearing these, like rude people. And like this is also coming from my personal experience, right? And then the other piece would be when we make decisions, and this is not necessarily like related to startups, but when we make decisions, we shouldn't really use emotions like at all. I made a lot of mistakes, using emotions, involving my emotions with some of the decisions that I made. And it's a super, wrong kind of thing. Like I failed because of this. And then I learned. So now when I make a decision, I completely, shut down that emotional side of my brain and think logically. Okay, what would be the impact? What would be the consequence of this decision? So I think this is a really, really important thing that like every founder needs to do. The thing is, we're all humans. We have emotions, but sometimes we need to think more logically. Yeah, so I think that would be really, really important.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I love that. You're 100% right. You need to think logically. You need to not take it personally. I love the point about the nasty people. I try to explain to people that there's people out there whose only wish is to see you fail. It's their personal pleasure. And so you can't take all the information at face value. Sometimes you have to look at the character behind that, because they might say critical information that leads you down a path that you don't want to go. The other thing I would add, and I love that to think logically, it's the same thing about money. I find a lot of startups, they start getting very critical about every penny being spent, or not critically enough. So there is also think logically about the way you're spending and think logically about your decision. So I think that's brilliant.
Right.
Switching it up one more time to, if you could meet any entrepreneur today, now having experience and having a couple of years in this, if you could meet any entrepreneur for coffee, pick their brain, who would it be and why?
Did you ask this question last time? I don't want to give the same answer.
I think I did, but I can't remember. I don't remember exactly when I brought this question in, but that's one of my favorite questions.
There are a few people, but I think, if I might have gave this answer previously, but Elizabeth Holmes would be an interesting conversation. So she is, are you familiar with her?
Yes. I mean, the latest is that she's going to prison, but she's not going to prison. So it's a weird person to bring up, but yeah.
Yeah. So the reason is, I don't appreciate, like all the things, like it's not ethically good from my perspective, but it was interesting to see her raising millions of dollars with no proper product at all. And I really think that if she wasn't in the health industry, she would have been the most, well-known investor. Maybe she would have been like Elon Musk kind of, she might be at that level. So yeah, she was just unfortunate that she was in the health industry, which is not right. But a lot of these practices that she implemented are common practices in the tech industry. So yeah, like I would love to learn more about how she was able to get all those funding with no money at all. How she created that FOMO effect. It was impressive. So yeah, I would actually like love to talk to her if I had that option.
Yeah, you know what? She would be a really interesting person to talk to. She'd be an interesting person to see her perspective. And I 100% agree. If she was in any other sector than health, where, yes, it's critical to tell the truth, she would have probably just gone down as, maybe not the most trustworthy entrepreneur. Scott Galloway brought up this point, and I 100% agree with him, that if she was a man, she would have got a stern talking to and probably not gone to court. I think it would have been a different outcome. I think it's because there's a lot of that misogyny that's still there in the tech sector, and people were really, her champions were really big champions, but also her naysayers were even bigger, and I think they took extra pleasure to bring her down. But yeah, the way she went around to get her funding and to find investors and talk to them, it's one of those situations when you look at it, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like no one else noticed. It was weird. Like when I listened to the podcast about her, fall, it does bring a lot of questions. But yeah, it would be fun to talk to her for sure.
And how about yourself? Who would you talk to?
For me, who I would love to have, I mean, as a podcast host, I get to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. So I would love to talk to all the ones that I feel that they rub me the wrong way. So Elon Musk, it's one of those people that I'd love to have a conversation with him just to get to know him, because I think he's brilliant in many ways, but I also know the whole history, of where he came from. So it's not exactly the way that a lot of people see him, but I would love to be able to talk to him to say what's his view on it and ask some hard questions. Another person I'd love to sit down with is Professor Galloway, because I find that he's very much like me, like just a wealthier, slightly older version of me. brilliant, not to toot my own horn, but he has some really unique points of view of business. And I don't always agree with him. Like there's a lot of things that I would disagree with him being in the trenches with startups and freelancers and small business owners, where he's looking at it from large corporations. But that's another person. I'd love to be able to have a discussion, almost like an argument about certain things that he's brought up. And that's who I would take. So one question I ask, and I'm sure we asked this question last time, is what is one business book that had an impact? Now you've already said one, so a new one since then that's had a big impact on your professional life.
Yeah, not necessarily professional life, but both professional and personal life. It would be Poor Dad, Rich Dad, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started reading it and like I almost done. Really interesting. Like you actually get to see a lot of the different things and the way that you get exposed to both, like from the rich dad experience, from that entrepreneurial mind versus a more traditional, go to school, get a good job, pay your bills perspective. I really like it. And I'm actually applying some of the concepts in my personal life and professional life too. So that would be one I would recommend.
That's brilliant. I did read his as well. Now, the author's name is just on the tip of my tongue. I think his last name starts with a K. But anyway, we'll put it up on the show notes. But it's one of the books that I read years and years ago that really opened up my eyes about investments, property investments, and understanding how your money works and how to grow your money, as opposed to just doing the traditional things that we grew up learning that I think were not necessarily bad, but they were too of a wide brush painting us into this sort of investment. And today we're seeing that people are a lot more fine tuning their ideas based on a lot of this experience. So brilliant. So my closing question to you, and the same as last time, how can people reach out and connect with you, and what's the best way? And we'll be adding this to the show notes for sure.
Yeah, so we talked about this, but people can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter, as well as other platforms like LinkedIn. My handle is Arda Erturk. And the other thing we didn't talk about, Telegram is also commonly used in Web3 as well. So sometimes I reach out to people there, and my Telegram handle is Erturk Arda. So people can reach out to me on Telegram as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
And then maybe one question for you.
Sure.
What would be the biggest challenge for you, like with these podcast sessions? Maybe like editing or finding new people. What would be the biggest pain point for you?
So the biggest pain point of podcasting, even though it's a brilliant medium to reach out to people and connect with people, is the amount of time it takes to not only find guests, and this is because it's a Q&A podcast. It's finding the time to record, creating the content, editing, and then being able to distribute it. But the amount of time for 1 hour episode takes about 5 hours of work. So, and there's no way around it. Even if you were to hire somebody else, you still have to work with them to be able to edit it to the way that it makes it becomes your podcast, as opposed to just, medium or content out there. So there's still quite a bit of work, even if you were able to offload some of it. But I think the biggest pain point is getting the guests and getting the content and editing and then getting it out there.
And what do you think about those AI powered platforms where they do the editing, they even create those short like YouTube shorts and like TikTok videos just based on I don't know what are they based on, but like they're able to produce some content through that. So yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback.
So yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of the AI, and I use AI a lot, I've tried a few of the platforms. They work in certain ways. So if you have a monologue and your whole podcast is you speaking, those AI powered podcast enhancers where they create micro sessions of your podcast, put it together and edit it, are really great. They can do it. The moment you have a guest, the moment you have variations in sounds, the moment there's any sort of background noise, it stumbles. It doesn't create what you would want it. And it turns out it's too early in its infancy stage. So they're using the AI platform and they're creating with the questions. So the lead-in questions are pre-built. And so when you're entering in your podcast, they've already asked the questions to the AI to generate it based on your content. It works. I think it's a fast way to go about it, and it'll get better. And then eventually I can have an AI assistant be editing in creating those sort of shorts and then be able to distribute it to multiple channels. So I think that's the future. 100% I agree, but it's still in its infancy stage where the quality, you would have to double check it. So are you saving a lot? No, so far, but that could change in the months, right? Because it's growing so exponentially fast that I could see it in a year be something that would be really useful. As of today, my experience is it's okay. It's interesting, but it's not been as successful as I thought.
I see. Interesting. But as you said, the space is growing so fast. So like I'm sure maybe like even less than a year, we might be able to see some like really cool innovations in the space.
I honestly believe it. Like one of the first things will be virtual assistants to help to create this, where you just plug it in. And I see probably editors, such as I use the script editing software, will start integrating AI to actually speed up the process. So that's what I'm looking forward to, just to be able to upload it. It'll do most of the work, and then I just have to fine tune it, and then I'll be happy because I'll cut out a lot of work.
Yeah, that's really cool. That would be really cool.
Well, listen, thank you so much for the question. Thanks again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. Thank you again for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Business 911 is hosted and written by me, Olivier Bousset, and produced and edited by our talented podcast team. To listen to Business 911, you'll find us on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as YouTube. We hope you've enjoyed this interview and it's given you some valuable insights and helped you along your business journey. And if you have any comments or questions, please reach out to us. Thank you for joining us and listening to this episode of Business 911. A pitch deck in 60 seconds. We want to thank our sponsors, Pitch 2.0, a fully automated pitch creation and monitoring system, so you can focus on your product and not on the deck. You'll find them at pitch2.0.com.